Welcome everybody to IMSUG's Infor Document Management Information session. We're excited to have Joe Simpson with us today to present the Infor Document Management System enabling an FSM status report. He's going to cover different aspects of IDM, capturing, managing, and creating documents. This is something you can use in other Infor products, not just FSM. You can also use it within Lawson if you like. So if you have questions during this presentation, please put them in the chat. When you entered, you were entered in a mute mode, but we will be gathering questions and holding them to the end of the session. The session will probably last 40 minutes. And then we'll start answering those questions. And also, if we have time, we'll have a round table of other companies that want to talk concerning IDM. And I'd like to turn this over to Joe.
Okay, thank you. And thanks everybody for attending. I do want to keep this just as informational and conversational as possible. I know that having the all muted and using the chat feature kind of hinders that, but I'll just try to give some very straight and simple, easy to consume dialogue to get you all excited about the Infor document management. And just in a quick form of introduction, I'm Joe Simpson. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management. Just means I've been here a while, right? I started Lawson version 7 back in May of 1999, and I've been with Lawson and then now Infor for many years, and I was a solution consultant in the field demoing to healthcare, public sector, and services industry customers for many years. And then May of 2019, after 20 years doing that, I took over the product management team. And what that allows me to do is really come to the team with the context of what customers are extremely hungry for. And so document management as a part of the Infor OS or operating system, part of the technology stack, has really made quite a significant change on what a Lawson version 8, 9, and 10 customer sees and what a version 11 or FSM customer sees. And so I really want to get everybody excited about what the solution can and do for you. I want to start off by saying some of you all might be Lawson V10 customers and have MHC or Highland in your mix. And then the first question usually comes up is, do I have to drop them when I come up to 11 or FSM? And the answer is absolutely not. Both of those partners have been with the Infor family for 20, 30 years, and they're a critical part to our success as an organization. And so I've got 4 healthcare implementations in V11. I'll keep calling it V11 just from a familiarity perspective, but we have 4 implementations in flight with Highland alone that are closing in the next 45 to 60 days, where we're working with them to make sure that the integration from their document management system into our system are working as advertised. And so most organizations, you've got a tremendous amount on your plate just to upgrade, and the last thing some people want to do is have to manage the document side of the house. And so some people do a phase 1, phase 2. Hey, let's go live on FSM or V11, and then after a year or 2, let's switch off of our imaging partner and go organically with FSM. I've got some customers that are hybrids. They are using MHC to do their check printing, but hey, 1099 season, they're going to take it on and do it organically or natively using the IDM document solution. And we have some that come on up to V11 and they go all in with the solution. So as our customers, you all have options, and I'm not in a competitive situation with MHC or Highland. I want my customers to be happy and referenceable, and that's why this solution that you see today is baked in, and it's yours to take on when you have the appetite for it. There's no additional charge except for the OCR or the capture piece. And I'll say that probably 100 times to make sure that you truly understand the differentiation between what's organic and then what's an add-on charge. And so from a document management perspective, it's really 2 big pieces, right? It's the document output, those pixel perfect documents of a rec or a PO or AP or AR centric invoice, a statement, right? pick, pack, and ship documentation, all of that stuff that, you put all the information into the system. You have to generate a document to send externally or have a document within the system in order to track the history of. That's the output management, and we provide that to you as a full library of templates that, by and large, customers just adopt as they are. They put a logo on it and they're good to go. Some get in there and they get really creative and they take our template and they tweak it and they put their tweak into production. And we have some customers, which I prefer the most, they work with us and they partner with us and they say, hey, this would really move the needle on productivity if you had a template that worked like this. Give me that first right of refusal to develop it, put it in the system, and make it available for all the customers, right? That's really where I want to be, and that's where the success comes for the Infor family. So those are the outputs. And then it's the document management system, taking those documents, storing them in an electronic repository, having all the metadata that goes with them, and the ability to slice and dice and search it in IDM to find that document, or to be down at the transaction level and to expose a link to that document that's being stored up in IDM or document management, and be able to hop to there and open it up and see it in context of that. And then the final piece of that is Infor Go. Infor Go is a sister capability. It's all the mobility that comes with version 11. And IDM is a tool that you can use in context with Infor Go. So go out to your iPhone and go to the Apple Store and type in Infor Go, and you'll see that we have all these applications, and one of them is IDM, where you can actually take a picture of a document, type in the metadata, but then that document is metadata. It will then be stored in your Infor, your IDM repository. And then the third piece that brings it all together, as well as the Infor Capture, right? It's a relicensing of a third-party tool called Episoft, and this allows you to onboard documents electronically through the scan process, and then have the system dynamically create an invoice for you and affix that document within IDM, so that as if an operator had hand keyed it and had dynamically linked it. So it's additional licensing, and some people take this on in phase 2. Oh, and we've had some people that have done it in phase 1 of their implementation of Infor FSM. So let's talk a little bit about it. Go deeper, right? So when we talk about the output management, I always say those pixel perfect documents, but it comes with a kit of goodness. It has the template that we're talking about, which is a Microsoft Word template that allows you to generate those business documents that we give you a full, I think the count is 32 of them now. I'll show you how you can find them, but we give you a list of 32 of those in which you can use out of the box, or you can tweak. And we provide fact sheets on how to set them up and use them. We give sample data, XML data, so that when you're in here testing the template, you have sample data to give you a good gut check that what you're doing is correct. And then we also have, from an automation perspective, the last thing you want to do is to, key a transaction in the system, have the IDM document that's going to send it out to your customer or, your supplier, and not have an email template that you can enhance to make sure that when that document is sent out, that it has all the text that you want to go with it. So that in a nutshell is the output documents. And this is an eye test, and I always share this PowerPoint afterwards, but I'll point out to you we've covered the whole life cycle of purchase orders, payment request notices, invoice registers, right? Project contract invoices, billing invoices, accounts receivable invoices, payable checks, whether you want to go printed on watermark check stock that you have, you have some stock left on hand, or you want to go ahead and do MICR encoded check printing, where you just want to put the blank paper in the printer, and from a fraud perspective, to be able to print everything on that piece of paper, including the remittance advice from the system. We do both aspects of that. And I also want to point out that we also do, US 1099s. So, those are the things that I'm going to have conversations with today. But as I show you this and go a little bit forward, tremendous amount of automations that go along with that, so that when you go ahead and you create an invoice, it looks at the customer record, it finds the email address, and it sends it out to them. You create the payables, right? Do the 1099s, it looks at the vendor records, captures their email addresses, and transmits it for you, and then stores it simultaneously into IDM. So those are the first thing that I want to talk about for a quick second, and then we'll dive down into a couple of the capabilities. So the first thing I'm going to do, if you're a version 10 customer and you haven't seen version 11 yet, I'm going to just see if I can move this. Hopefully that's not an annoyance to the screen, that little menu device. But what I've done is I've logged into the system as a payables manager. I've come into all my invoices that are in the system in different, classifications or phases or life, unsubmitted, released, paid, etc. And so in this unsubmitted category, I'll open up this in context application widget, and you can see dynamically that for this invoice 32201, it has this widget that travels with it, and it says, wait a minute, this document has been attached to the transaction, and it's stored up in, I always say up, it's stored in IDM for future review. So the operator or the approver or the department manager, whoever it might be, they can come into the system very quickly. And if they're wanting to move this transaction to the right and get it through the system, they can click on this image and have it open it up for them and see it, read all the information associated with it. Or they can click on this little icon here at the bottom that says show it in context of IDM. And what that means is that if I click on this, I'll go from a one-to-one perspective and I'll go to one-to-many, right? So if I show an IDM, then what it did for me is it launched in my application switcher, it launched document management, and then it shows it in context here. And this is an important conversation to have, because any document that gets added to the system, whether it's brought in through Infor Capture, whether it's brought in through the application I just told you to look up in the App Store, the one called Infor IDM, or whether somebody drags and drops it onto a transaction, which I'll do in a quick minute, all of these properties are being captured. Individual who created it, date and timestamp, gives it a unique document ID, but also starts putting in these attributes or the metadata, right? So the company, the invoice, the vendor, all that information then starts to be captured on this, for future lookup and inquiry a day from now or a year from now, because it's going to be out there in the historical files. You can even see, information such as security through this access control list, as well as history of any changes or modifications that might have occurred. So since I'm up here in IDM, let me just pause for a quick second and say, from this one document, we can do things such as check in and check out. We can download this document in whatever format it was being stored in, or I can say, no, I want to normalize it, save it as a PDF. I can save it as a new document and do something else with it, print it, add it to your favorites, right? I'm reading the menu system to it, but what I'm pausing for a moment to let you realize that it truly is a fully functioning document management system with all the controls that you would imagine, but it's just baked in as part of your subscription to Infor FSM or Lawson version 11. Okay, and one of those things as a favorite, if I come over here to my favorites, the thousands of documents that are out there, anytime you mark it as a favorite, then it's here for this quick lookup. And so, an example could be, I've got billing invoices, from accounts receivable side, from projects and grant management, or from billing and revenue recognition side, so the BL system, those invoices are out there, or even AR generate documents, those are all out there, or even 1099s. So if I look at the 1099 from last season, from the 2020 season, I can then see these out there in context of who did I send it to, look up by the vendor, look up by any information that's associated with it, and be able to see it, and then do quick analysis of the information that's there. And then more than likely, if there's any reason why I'm here in document management to begin with, it's probably because somebody reached out to me. So then I can, download it and then email it off to that individual to bring that task to closure. So document management is a really powerful tool that allows you to come out here at the very top and look up by document type. So for example, if I went into payables invoices and I wanted to see all the invoices that were created for a dollar amount or a date range or a particular invoice or for a particular vendor, I can come in and do these type of searches, and then the system will then bring that information back to me. Okay, so what I want to point out to you is that for those of that, when you get into your roundtable discussions, what's really powerful about this is that these different, if you will, document types are really related to the business classes that are in the FSM system. And so it's a one-to-one relationship, so that when you're in there creating POs or creating requisitions or creating receivables from that business class and you store a document, then it's automatically going to be indexed with this business class or this document type, so that the system will allow you to go through and slice and dice the data in a meaningful manner. So let's pause for a quick second. So we've seen this high-level view of this electronic repository and all of its metadata. Let's get down to brass tacks and let's go into the system, back into the system from a transaction perspective. So I'm going to just do a couple of backspaces here and go right back down into accounts payable. Let's just start this movie in the middle. If I'm in here in accounts payable and I have an invoice out here that I'm working on, let's say, for example, let's just take this invoice that's in the system, 32401, and I'm working on it, and it's ready to go, but I notice I don't have a IDM document here. So I can very quickly, first of all, let's see here that I'm not able to put it onto a different business class, so the system knows you're in accounts payable, you're managing invoices, so the business class here is this Infor supplier invoice, and that's going to create a document within that classification in IDM. So it puts it in the proper categorization from the very beginning, so a casual user can't mess up the system. So then I can come in and say, well, let's go find the file. So I can browse my desktop, wherever it might be. So if I go to my desktop here, grab an invoice, hit open, and then now it's going to put it in context of that supplier invoice. Payables invoice is my document type, and then I hit upload. And that word upload is very important. I'm uploading it up into the IDM document repository, and at the same time, I'm capturing the metadata that's associated with it. So I'm capturing things like company 102, vendor number 1, vendor name, who am I? I'm Joe Samples, the operator that just put that in there, so that later on, whenever I'm doing a global search from the top down from IDM, all of those attributes, that metadata, is now meaningful from a search perspective. So that time to value of doing a quick attachment is very fast. One of the things that I like to always do is just, I won't do it here, but if this was my desktop, I can just grab the document and drag it in here, and it'll just dynamically attach it to that instead of having to navigate and trying to find it through the file viewer. But very quickly, I've made that association to it, and now it's attached to that from an approval perspective, but it's also attached to it from an auditor's perspective going forward. Okay, so document management from the inside, doing it here, as well as document management from the top side, doing a search for an invoice at the top and then going down into it. So that's very powerful. So let's pause for a quick second and let's talk about those document templates. And I had said that in this PowerPoint that we have numerous output templates for your very quick consumption. Right here I'm showing there's 32 of these business process output templates, and this is where you find them within the system. So anytime you go in either into financials or supply chain, and I just typed in the word shared in the search box, and it brings up sample document templates that are shared across the enterprise. And here they are. So in the application administrator, we have all of these templates out there for your quick edit and consumption. But I also told you that we have the XML document that has the sample data within it, so that when you're doing configuration and testing, You have the appropriate data. We have the email templates, and we have the fact sheets. And the very first tab here has all of the documents that you can page through it, or you can just come over here and say, well, I'm a payables kind of guy or gal, so now I want to come out here and just within payables, I want to go look for the word check, and then there you go. So there are your different check outputs that you have, MICR encoded checks, or payables payment output with the check on top. Different documentation is there. And then when you click on this link, you'll be able to see a very quick preview of what that might look like. And so when I say that by and large customers will adopt these just as we deliver them, other than coming in and putting in a company logo or adding in more detail, or suppressing detail that might, although it's relevant to the transaction within the system, they want to suppress it from the output document. So you can do that back and forth. So let me come back over here to my PowerPoint and let me show you a couple things from a check printing perspective. So the first thing I want to point out is that this came out, last year. So, if you're not familiar with the vocabulary of FSM or version 11, it's August now, and we just released, we're releasing CU82. So this came out in CU66. So it's been out there for a while, and we've had many customers out there that are using it very successfully, and they're doing it in high volume situations. And so from a usability perspective, I do believe we've made this bulletproof, and we are very passionate about partnering with either the partner or ICS to make sure that you get all over the little speed bumps along the way to make sure that you can get this into production very quickly. So there's no additional cost for that. Some of the things I'll point out though from the MICR check printing perspective is, again, not insulting anybody's intelligence, but fraud is of great importance, and so organizations, especially Coke and a couple of organizations said, Joe, we want to partner with you and make sure that we can do this. Just we have blank paper and do everything from within. So going forward, you're able to print these MICR encoded checks. You're also able to print the remittance advice that goes along with it. And from a check perspective, we have individuals that want the check on the top and the remittance advice on the bottom, and vice versa. And we also have organizations that we're working with right now that their need is to have the check directly in the middle, because they're using trifold envelopes, and the system automatically folds those for them. And so that'll be coming into the system next month, where you're able to do the check in the middle with the remittance advice on the bottom. So we're working on that, and it'll be there next month is what we're looking at. You also have the ability to put in a signature, a GIF or a lockdown image of those signatures, so that when you do your check runs and based on dollar threshold of that output, you're able to then have that signature auto affixed to that check. So that's in the system now. And one thing that I will point out to you is that the only thing that you need to do from a hardware perspective is to make sure that you acquire the MICR font. It's called the E13B font. We don't provide that. You need to buy it, and it's extremely cost effective. I think anywhere from $1 to $2K. I know I've seen prices last year around $13.50, but $1 to $2K, a one-time license to be able to have that plugin into Microsoft Word. And again, Microsoft Word is the foundation for the output documents. So our IDM template is a plug-in to Microsoft Word. So those live in harmony together. And of course, you have to have a printer that has a MICR ink cartridge as part of that full kit. And the one that we've tested, we have no skin in the game on which one you use. The one that we've tested for the last several years is the HP OfficeJet Pro 8210, and that's the one that seems to work very efficiently for us. And so you can always start your search there and then branch out, or if you already have one, I'm sure that it will work just as well. So no cost to do this within our system other than having the proper hardware and the MICR code to go with it. Okay. And I'm trying to be very conscientious of the time here. So I also now want to extend this out and have a conversation about the 1099s, because that season will be upon us quicker than you realize. And so, this was, last year was our very first successful year doing 1099s. And this year, we're working with several organizations for both Lawson V10 and FSM to make sure that we have a very successful 2021 season as well. But I'll just point out a couple of words, to plant the seed in your mind that when you do the 1099s within FSM, it supports the copy A, the B, and the C, those that are going to the IRS and to the recipient that you keep in-house as the payer. So you have these, again, these are electronic copies, right? But these electronic copies are being stored within the electronic repository called Infor Document Management, and they have the metadata, the supplier or the vendor that you're doing business with. That's the key in which you can look them up, or if a request for correction comes in or retransmission or whatever it might be. But what the system does is, I want you to understand, is that it does both emailing and printing. And again, so all the automation of having suppliers' email address on the, in your mind's eye, the AP10 vendor record, or up in FSM, that vendor master, having the proper email address associated with it so that it can go off automatically. For those of you that might not be as familiar with our 1099s, these are the big six that we cover: the dividends and distributions. We do certain, government payments, the 1099G, 1099 for interest income, 1099K. And those of you that might not have heard last year, they shredded out, I think it was box 7 off of the 1099 miscellaneous, and they made its own sister form. So 1099 miscellaneous in its newest state is out there, and then the new information, the 1099 NEC or non-employee compensation, that's within the system as well. So those are the big six that we work on, and then we provide those outputs for. And again, on the Lawson side, we've made sure that we've got all those enhancements there for you, and then it's native to the system on the FSM side. Okay. And I pointed out to you that one of the ways that you find these is that you go into the application administrator role, and those documents are stored out there, except for the 1099s. And I know that sounds, that might sound a little off kilter, and I've had some customers that called me and they've been looking for these. Until you go into the system on the vendor group and you tell the system on the vendor group, hey, we plan on doing 1099s this season, in order to keep the noise out of the application administrator files. Until you flip the flag that says 1099s will be done on the vendor master or the vendor group, by flipping that flag, it dynamically goes out there and gets the latest version of them, 2021 versus 2020, and it will bring those in and populate this for you. So if you're looking for it, you just have to flip that flag, and we'll help you with that. We're going to be doing a lot of KTs coming in the next couple of months to make sure our customers are very successful in the 1099 processing. So I'm going to, I know that we're on silent here and we only can do Q&A in the chat box, but I'm going to kind of put a pause on, and of all of the document management piece, I'm going to take the balance of the time that we have and talk a little bit about Infor Capture. So again, in your mind's eye, what we just talked about in the last 30 minutes was saying that Infor Document Management creates those pixel perfect output documents. It stores them and their metadata in IDM, and if set up, it electronically transmits it out to customers or vendors or suppliers, whoever it might be. It transmits those so that an operator doesn't have to do that. So extremely efficient processing. Well, let's talk about, that's getting it all out. Let's talk about getting it in for a moment. And what I mean by getting it in for a moment is Infor Capture. Infor Capture is a relicensing of Episoft. So Episoft is a third-party solution that's out there, and you can Google that. EPHE, SOFT. Episoft has been in the industry for quite some time, and their solution is fully integrated into Infor document management. And Infor document management is fully integrated into Infor FSM. And so what that means is that when you're ready to import those documents, and by and large, in the past it was, put the document on the scanner, close the lid, hit the scan button, and generate an output document. In today's world, what it means is that the system will dynamically scan, watch folders, or look for email attachments, and then dynamically bring those into the system and store them in IDM, and also go into AP20 or go into the invoice creation tab within FSM and automatically create that invoice for you as if it was an AP technician 10 key in that solution. So IDM finds the document, Capture finds the document, goes through a process of creating the document within FSM and attaching it in IDM. And it has, I'm not going to be able to show it to you today, but it has a very sophisticated fuzzy business logic layer, so that when invoices do break down, and they do, right? So we want to get to that zero touch situation, but it's not going to happen on day one. There's a process of machine learning that goes along. And so in your mind's eye, imagine if we brought in 100 invoices and 10 of them broke down, then the AP technician would then go out there and open up those invoices within Capture, and they would, if something was missing, such as the vendor or the company number or the distributions or whatever it might be, they point to where that information is found on the image, and then it starts to learn. So it starts to pick up the habit of, so if you use the same vendor over and over and over again, it starts to learn where that information is at and how it's presented, so that error rate goes down over time. And so I've been told by the Episoft that you start off in the 80th percentile, and then as you feed the beast, as you feed the machine, and you run more and more invoices through it, and an operator has to repair those broken down invoices with a point and click to the broken down data, then over time it grows from the 80s into the high 90 percentile, so that we all get to that goal of zero touch. And so that's what Capture does for us, is it looks for those physical documents either in an email or somebody actually scans it. We have that image, it goes through Infor Capture, comes down into Infor document management and stores it, but it also at the same time creates that invoice within CloudSuite Financials. And that's when you marry that up with all of the improvements that we've made to the system around accounts payable, with the approvals, right? So we've got, if you haven't kept abreast of some of the approvals that we have in the system, where we have users, and we have groups and nested groups, and we have all of that came about from our collaboration with HCA, and I think we have some of the folks on the phone from them. But also we've worked with Coke, where coming in next month's, or excuse me, this month, the August release, is that we also have dynamic approver assignment capability. And what that means is that we have resources in the financial resource record. We give them, they have delegations of authority, and they have a maximum invoice approval limits, so that anytime somebody's in the system creating a AP invoice and it's being routed for approval, we can use the natural approval routing categories that are associated with it based on the vendor or based on the processor. But anytime throughout that process, we can dynamically assign or do delegation of authority and assign it to other individuals for quick approval and get it out of the system. So I look forward to sharing that stuff with you all in subsequent presentations. But let me check the time here. Yeah, we're closing in on the balance of the time of the presentation. What I want to do is get out of presentation mode and see if we can open up the mics for any type of questions that might be out there for us.
Joe, we do have two questions. The first one is from Jeremy. Any ER coming to add a stamping functionality to documents within IDM?
I'm trying to catch the context of stamping. Jeremy, it seems like you and I've already made a promise that I'm going to get on the phone and follow up with you on some of the security questions you had, but are you talking about watermarking, or I'm not sure what you mean by stamping it? Like stamping it as date received or something like that, so you have a visual cue on the invoice itself?
Yeah, something like that. Some products offer the ability when you have a document open to add like a stamp, like you said, received date, or maybe even jot a note on it. I think the closest we found is checking it out and having a PDF editor do it and then check it back in. I didn't know if there was any exploration of just having that built into the IDM system itself.
So we'll absolutely talk about it, and it sounds like a great idea. And so if it's technically feasible, we will absolutely put it on the list and get it prioritized accordingly. Yeah, because I know that's important, right? Everybody needs to see, it was received on this date and time, even if it has electronic audit log with it, but just having that visual is quite important, right? So if we're trying to do discounting or just push it to terms, that helps us figure that out, right?
Yep.
Okay, we'll definitely take that into consideration. And just an audible here. If anybody is using DocuSign or always wanted to have DocuSign, the way that enhancements happen around here, Infor document management, I think it was mentioned earlier that it exists not only with FSM or Lawson version of it, but document management is used across the whole Infor suite of applications. And so DocuSign is one of those things that we've brought DocuSign in. We've got it generally available and certified with IDM, and each of the products are now building out use cases, and we're working on it now. We're DocuSign on contract management, but we're also going to do DocuSign like on purchase orders and payable invoices, and so that'll be coming very quickly. And Jeremy, just the whole stamping, that kind of brought that up in my mind's eye. I know it's not, 100% related, but both of those things we'll take care of very quickly.
All right, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions out there in the chat?
Margaret Atkins has a question that if we are a V10 customer and not actively implementing V11, can we get the 1099 template?
Regrettably, we can't, because they're completely different, architectures. So what we tell Margaret, what we tell everybody on V10 is that if you're working with MHC or you're working with Highland, that they're adopting our changes and incorporating those, both from the feds, but also the changes that we're doing within our system, and we stay that course. So it's really unique to version 11 or FSM. We've made some, if you haven't heard about it though, we've made some significant enhancements in 1099s this season as well, from doing adjustments, right? So if Joe Simpson got paid X amount of money, but then it's appearing as Y on a 1099 as reportable income, we can do a correction to a Joe Simpson record that's already been submitted up to the IRS. And we also can do adjustments to the total IRS transmission that we've made. We can go in there and we can blank out a complete vendor's record or do adjustments to it. What I'm trying to impose upon you all is that in the past, it was one and done. You made the transmission and then you had to do all sorts of manual changes. Now we've made it extremely forgiving, and if changes, real world happens, right? Changes and adjustments have to occur, and we have those automations within the system now, within 1099 processing, to do those individual adjustments, blank outs, or total repairs back to the IRS.
If anyone else has a question, if you'll raise your hand, I'll unmute you.
Joe, this is Margaret. I think you should be able to hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
We are using IDM, and we have a variety of the Infor products already, such as Cloud Suite Distribution, EAM, Lawson, and we have IDM linked to all of these applications. Is there any risk that implementing FSM with IDM would use some of the already pre-delivered document types that we're using with these other products, or is the FSM templates, document types, all unique to that product?
So, Margaret, and we can always have another, one-off conversation, but if I heard you right, I don't think that we're going to cause any overlap, duplicity, or wipe anything out because of the uniqueness of the FSM business class. It's a one-to-one relationship, so we're not going to override or disrupt any other business classes that you have within IDM. So if you have EAM stuff living in harmony with XM stuff, now it can live in harmony with FSM stuff.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's great. Great to know. That was one of my concerns going with FSM, because there are so many, we're using so many of the invoicing and reporting functionalities with Cloud Suite Distribution that we don't need to overlap.
Right. And our business classes are going to be named differently. So, and that's what I showed you. When you're down in dragging and dropping an invoice to that transaction, first of all, you can't pick the wrong business class because it's defaulted for the end user, kind of in the background, unless they know to look for it. And it's unique to the name of FSM.
Okay, if anybody else has a question, if you raise your hand, we'll unmute you.
Joe, are there other sessions like maybe going into more detail on how to create templates and using templates, or are there other sessions that you would recommend for our type of group, people who are more so Lawson going into FSM customers?
And there are. We have some sessions out there on Infor Campus, and we have done KT sessions where we've recorded those, and I can put together that list that pulls it all together, so you don't have to hunt and find it. Can give a one-stop shop for how to get to those pieces, and it really is. It takes a little bit on the editor. You just download the editor in IDM. It has the utilities, and you put the plugin into Word. And with a little bit of practice, it is pretty straightforward, but it does take that first round of knowledge transfer and training to make sure that you have the confidence not to break anything. But we definitely we'll get that list out to everybody.
I am not seeing any more hands raised or questions come in.
Okay. Well, Joe, I greatly appreciate you taking the time today to have this session for us. I think IDM and its integration with FSM and the other Infor products is a huge win. I think it gives us options on what we're doing with our documents, how we're capturing data. And again, Jeremy, if you find those answers to your questions about some of the other challenges that you're having, it'd be great to have those shared with the group.
Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that. And Jeremy, I will reach out to you. You're in Tennessee and you're on Eastern, so it's not going to what I tried to do is I tried to do a morning call like 7 Central Time, 8 Eastern, with my resources in Manila, and we'll get on the phone, and in 30, 45 minutes or an hour session, we'll be able to knock out all those questions you might have with, we'll bring up live server and kind of walk through some scenarios with you to make sure that you have a full understanding.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank Work Out Loud and Loring for helping provide the platform for this meeting, and I hope that everyone who attended feels like this was beneficial. If you have suggestions for other sessions, or if you'd like to go into more detail specifically about IDM or anything else, we're open to suggestions for having additional sessions in the future. Jason Griffin, thank you so much for helping facilitate as well. And one important part that I totally forgot, and hopefully everyone heard earlier, if you got on earlier, the Infor Mid-South User Group is going to give away 2 $25 gift certificates to attending members. Anyone on the call that is interested in the Infor Mid-South User Group, we welcome your attendance. We welcome you to join our organization or our meetings if you have an interest, and we would like to hear from you. We'd also like feedback on the presentation, the platform, and what you would like to hear in the future as well. Since we're not having our in-person meetings this year, we're trying to offer some sessions online that we can get together and discuss topics of interest to our group. So Jason, if you'd like to handle the 2 gift certificates.
Yeah, so this is for IMSUG members. We're going to open up the first 2 to put their names in the chat that show up. We will register you guys and send you out a gift card. So I'm watching the chat now. I see Katie Faye. There's our first one. Congratulations, Katie Faye. We're just looking for one more. And I see Alan Lindsay. Congratulations, Katie, Faith, and Alan. All right. Margaret, if you'd like to close us out.
All right. I'd like to again thank everyone. Thank you, Joe, for providing this information and answering our questions. And we hope to talk with everyone soon in the future.
Thank you all.
Thanks.